Thank you, Katie. And that's right. For the next 30 minutes, we will be focusing on the topic of digital wallets and verifiable decentralized identities. That sounds so technical and so difficult, but I have perfect guests joining me to shed some light on that topic and make it understandable for us, and also to demystify the topic and really carve out the opportunities for our industry and how we can leverage that for an overall better travel experience. So thank you everyone in the audience for joining us here at ITBBerlin Convention 2022. It's great you're with us. Stay with us for the 30 minutes. And I'd like to start with welcoming my guests. In the studio with me is Nick Price. Hi, Nick.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming
Great to
in.
be here.
It's a pleasure. I love having people on site in person.
Me
That's
too.
just fantastic.
Thank you.
Nick Price is the chair of the Special Interest Group for Hospitality and Travel at DIF. That's the Decentralized Identity Foundation. So you're all involved in that topic.
Deep down.
Yes, perfect. So the perfect guest to join us for this discussion. And then we also have here in the studio Florian Daniel. Florian, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and Florian is the CIO at Deutsche Hospitality Group. So you're presenting the hotelier's perspective, operating in multiple countries. So thank you for joining and offering your views as well. And joining us remotely, we are a nicely mixed, balanced panel here. All the way from the UK is Jamie Smith. He's Strategic Engagement Director at Evernym. And Evernym is a company recently acquired by Avast. And many of you will know it because they're, for example, responsible for the IATA Travel Pass. So Jamie, thank you so much for joining us as well.
You're very welcome. Great to be here.
Perfect. And last but not least, we have Francois Blanc, the Managing Director of Amadeus Traveler ID, joining us. So Francois, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
So, and as we only have 30 minutes to discuss a very complex topic, let's not lose any time. And well, we discussed beforehand that it's probably very important to, first of all, picture what's the status quo, why do we need digital identities? So Nick, could you fill us in? There are solutions out there, right? Like Apple wallets. There's some institutions offering digital wallets that consumers can just use. There are QR codes used. So for me as a layman, why would we actually need that? I don't understand.
Well, real world experience. Look in your wallet, your physical wallet. How many plastic cards do you have?
Oh, plenty.
Plenty. How many of them represent hospitality and travel? Nearly all of them, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many of them do you bother to keep your address up to date?
None.
Exactly. So you are not interested, right? And that's a fragmented traveler profile. What does a travel provider want? Accurate customer information. You've already said it's not accurate.
Right.
Right? Problem number one. Problem number two, we are entering a period, a time when seamless travel enabled through digital presentation of information backed by trusted identity is a must. If you don't have a consistent single travel identity that you can present and you can use, and the tools through which to present it, then you're going to get black spots in that travel journey, and it won't be effective for you, and it absolutely won't be effective for the travel providers.
Right. Florian, do you recognize these pitfalls in your hotel's operations as well? Would you agree that's a problem?
I do agree. So we have manual processes all the way. You have the physical cards that need to be presented every time. You have the technology breaches, not only in international travel where it's so apparent that you have your physical passport, but even in national travel. And today we had a good experience here while just checking in at this event, right? So you had the ticket. I had to show my health certificate, and then also a physical ID. And this combined in one process, that would be a real improvement of the travel industry and all the processes around it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
There's one more thing, actually.
Okay, add it.
And that is simply the risk of travel providers capturing and storing more and more customer information.
Right.
It is a huge risk. It's becoming really almost a toxic asset to keep for many companies. And digital identity, trustable digital identity, actually reduces the need to store this information. And therefore, if you reduce the need, you reduce the risk.
Right, so you also reduce this whole discussion around GDPR and the headache topics that everyone is fighting with at the moment. Right, okay. So Jamie, you have a lot of experience in that field, right? So you are basically also just as Nick, totally immersed in the topic. And always interesting, I think, for the audiences to understand, is there other industries that excel at that topic that we can look at and kind of get inspiration from? Can you share some best practice from other industries that are doing this already quite well?
Absolutely. So this idea of having a digital wallet, and a bit like my physical wallet, I can choose what to put in it. I can have different credentials from different sources, and then I can put them together and share them seamlessly with kind of, let's say, one tap. And Avast is working with the National Health Service in the UK. We've got over 1 million employees. Moving those employees around is very difficult. But guess what? I need to prove that I'm a doctor. When I'm onboarded into a new role, I've got to prove my identity, my passport. Maybe there's IT systems I need to access, and I need to prove that I'm entitled. So putting all that information together is really hard. With paper and HR processes, it's all fragmented, just like the travel industry. And with this idea of a staff passport rather than a travel passport, it's the same thing. It's just a wallet. I put information in, and when I show up for a shift or a new role, I scan a QR code, one tap, and I can share all those different attributes, all the different credentials seamlessly together. And so what takes today, 1 day, to onboard a new employee will take about 5 minutes. So you can imagine this for a seamless experience in travel, but the insurance industry is looking at it, retail's looking at it from a checkout point of view, maybe identity, maybe profile, maybe payments. So it's everywhere.
Right. And Francois, from your perspective, you're active in that field, obviously. I mean, your title gives it away. You're kind of heading this department at Amadeus and the initiative. What are the opportunities that you are seeing? And you can already say, yeah, we have already a best practice experience on that. That's really an opportunity for digital identities.
So we can have a look at what happened with airline and the COVID situation over the last few years. What we've been doing is helping airlines to start to collect these documents from travelers, and these COVID certificates became more and more digital. And if it's a vaccination certificate, it's valid for a number of years, a bit of time. So you could store that in a wallet from an airline, from a business travel agency. So for every trip I want to book, I don't need to bring these documents to the airport. I can, from the wallet, upload that to my travel seller, so that it's pre-processed, and it gives to the travelers 2 really nice benefits. First is if you want the guarantee of outcome, if all these documents could be pre-processed because they were in the wallet and connected at the time of the booking or the self check-in, there will be no denied boarding at the last minute. And the second thing is reduce queuing, because when you have pre-processed all of these documents, you can prepare all these traveler verification checkpoints on your journey so that they let you go without having to queue. So in the airport, it could be a biometric gate, but in hotels and car rental, it could be a digital key system. I think we'll hear from Florian a bit later what has been done in Germany, which is very interesting. If you start to tie the digital wallets to the travel checkpoints, you can provide a much better experience to travelers.
Right. That's a good segue you're giving me, because I wanted to hear more about the advantages. But before we dive into that, Florian, Deutsche Hospitality is part of this pilot project in Germany with the government, and it started well, and then it paused. So it's not as easy as it seems. Why?
So first of all, I think it had the right ingredients.
Okay,
first
cool.
of all. So it was a big public-private partnership, or it is a big PPP project, and it's working fairly well. And just within 6 months, we had the digital hotel check-in working, but probably a little bit the other way around, that we started with a basis ID, an ID derived from the German ID card. So we had an officially issued ID, and then we looked around, okay, what are potential use cases? And we had many companies on board that have use cases for, like we had finance in opening bank accounts. And then obviously the travel case is just a good example because it is so fragmented. And what we've implemented is in 120 hotels that we you just scan the QR code and you have the right data that you can represent, and it's valid information that we can rely on. And it's twofold. It's this data from the government issued ID, and then we had the companies issuing their employee certificate or employee card. And so with just one request, we can collect that both data points, and we know it's valid, and the people at the front office know, okay, this is really a traveler from that corporation and is allowed to use whatever services we have in the contract. So why it stopped? Probably too many use cases at the same time, but I am glad to share that we are about to restart, and then the hospitality use case is one of the use cases that will even go across borders then.
Right. So yeah, that sounds exciting, and I think everyone will look this up now and try to find out more about it. Can you share? Is there some information to be found online on that project for
yes.
the audience?
So yeah, you'll find it on the government's web pages, on the Federal Chancellery's web pages. You'll find quite some good information.
Right. So, and Nick, I know you're obviously very passionate about this whole topic, especially about the decentralized aspect, right, of IDs. So, give us a quick list. We mentioned a few things, right? Efficiency, security, reduced waiting time, and what is other opportunities and benefits here?
We mentioned seamless, and I don't think we should underestimate how important that is. I mean, just being able to go from one end of a travel journey to the other. Most of the experience that a traveler has today is really airport related. You know, their seamless experience starts when they get to the gate of the departure airport, and it ends when they leave the arrivals hall of the arrival airport. But there's so much more beyond that. What about the cab? What about the rail? What about the hotels?
Right.
What about the restaurant? And travel providers as well, such as tours and attractions. Huge benefits to be able to pass reliable information. Just imagine a world when, instead of walking into the taxi outside of the airport, you're going into an autonomous vehicle. It's not too far away. How do you tell the autonomous vehicle where you want to go? Very simple, right? Just tap, and you've given your name, you've given your payment, you've given your destination or your ticket that you might have, and away you go.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you're making, because Jamie, I know that you have a very good way at explaining why the decentralized approach is so important, because it's the customer themselves, or like the user, has power back above the data, and we don't have to share everything. We just can partially share items of the data. Can you explain a bit more about that? Why is that so beneficial for the user?
So there's a bit of devil in the detail here, but it's like giving customers superpowers. So we carry around our kind of physical wallets and passports and stuff, and once they're digital, once I can put them on my device, number of things happen. One, if you want to hack my data, you can come and get me, right? The data is at the edge by design, number one. But number two, because we handle the data in a clever way, this isn't about just having a QR code with the data inside it. We're saying something different. We're putting the data in a clever kind of watermarked way on the phone. And that means we can do truly digital things. This isn't about just digitizing the data. It's making it digital. And that means I can say, are you over 21? Yes or no? Or do you have a boarding pass for a ticket that is for a flight that's leaving today? Yes or no? Should you be in this part of the airport? Yes or no? Are you allowed in the lounge? Yes or no? And that means I'm sharing much less data. That's great from a confidence and privacy perspective. But guess what the organization is receiving? They're receiving yeses and nos. They don't have this big database anymore. So from a privacy, from a data protection perspective, that's really helpful. But there's one last kicker, and that's about having a new peer-to-peer connection with the organization, because I need to be able to share the data with them seamlessly. And once I've shared the data, I'm left with this peer-to-peer connection. And that means they can message me and say, "Hey, your flight's delayed. Here's some free access to the lounge."
Right. If I picture being an intermediary here, right? I like to collect the data. Would I like that you take the data away from me and you just I'm cut out of this process? How does that impact the ecosystem?
Of course, everything changes, right? This is going to change. The role of the intermediary will change. The role of the intermediary, which is today really the custodial source of that customer information, because you're logging in somehow into the OTA, it will change, because you don't need to log into an OTA in order to pass identity information to the travel provider. So yes, it will change. They won't disappear at all. They still provide a valuable service. But the need for a traveler to engage an OTA to intermediate the relationship with a travel provider, the traveler to intermediate a relationship with the travel provider, will no doubt reduce, and it will change. more power in that negotiation during the booking phase, the ability to provide accurate information direct to the travel provider. That's really what we're going to see. That's what decentralized in travel and hospitality provides for us. It provides that clarity of information through that channel, that peer-to-peer channel that Jamie mentioned. There's no intermediary restricting flow.
Right. And Francois, from your perspective from Amadeus, would you agree with that? And what changes are you anticipating in the ecosystem once this moves along?
I definitely agree. And I think as well that we will see a mix of situations. To your point, Lea, when you said that some travel companies will want to keep the data centrally, I do expect some travel companies to be willing to create their own wallet or to reuse third-party wallets. I do expect them to want to keep traveler data on the wallet, and as Jamie said, this data cannot be hacked all the time because you can hack some servers sometimes, but you cannot hack all the mobile phones all the time. So when I think from the Amadeus perspective, with the variety of partners that we have, we'll have some partners will want to store some of this data centrally for acquisition purpose, customership purpose, want to keep some of it data in the wallets and to refresh it from time to time to their servers, but just some of it, so one maybe a bit more difficult to handle because of privacy reasons. So I do expect to see a wide range of situations, from what kind of wallet do I want to offer to my travelers, my own brand, third-party brands, and where do I want which data to remain and to be refreshed. So we need to build solutions that will work for this range of situations using
right.
a wide range, I think, of like for employees with bring your own device. If you make the parallel with people willing to bring their own mobile phones or laptop at work, we will have travelers willing to use a wallet from Apple or from Germany or from Evernym, and some players will want to push some wallets to their travelers. So we need to cope for all of these situations.
Right. So if I listen to that, and if I also recall what you just said, Florian, that you're doing this in Germany with 120 hotels, that's a pilot project in one country, right? So, and what you're describing, are we facing now a time where we have complexity within digital wallets then offered instead of other complexities? Because now when any company, Deutsche Hospitality, for example, could do that as well, right? If I understand you correctly, Francois, Deutsche Hospitality could decide to create their own digital wallet. So I, as a consumer, I face a new complexity, the complexity of digital wallets. Is this what we want?
No, that's not what we want. So interoperability is certainly one of the challenges that we can sort out. But from a technical standpoint, it's feasible. And I think everybody that designs something around that SSI technology needs to be very impartial about it. And I think this is what is important for like a larger gain that we have here, because everybody will be positively impacted by this, because intermediaries will get probably less data, but they will get more accurate information along the way because it's entered by the traveler or issued by a government. And also, if we talk about preferences or so, which is huge in the hospitality industry, we collect so much information and it's being passed on and passed on and passed on, but not used effectively. And with that data that I specify as a traveler or as a user of that wallet, it's actionable information in the end. So there is a lot to win, I think, for everybody. But this impartial, and countries need to trust each other. I think that's also important, that we need lawmakers in the picture. So there are some things that need to go right, but I see a lot of good movement.
And it's interesting to know who to sit on the table, who we have to involve.
Well, we have to involve all parties, and thankfully we are.
Good.
Right?
Yes.
We are.
I mean, your initiative is doing that as well, right?
Exactly, but the Decentralized Identity Foundation is one of a number of similar organizations grouped actually under the Linux Foundation, and it's a sort of broad open source coalition. It's made up of hundreds, thousands, more than 1,000 companies who are really, really focused at delivering an effective interoperable solution. What we're actually building in partnership with governments such as, and the EU that Florian mentioned, and other governments worldwide, is an interoperable ecosystem of decentralized digital identity with the purpose of providing to the individual some ownership, which we call sovereignty, over the information that they give, such that it's owned by them, they control it, it's in a central place. for them, and that's somewhat paradoxically the decentralization that we're talking about.
Right, so collaboration is key here. Jamie, what would you add from your perspective, also given your knowledge from other sectors, how they approach the topic?
I think there's a privacy and security story here, but I think this is only going to get adopted and when we're really focused on the value to organizations, value to consumers, save time, save money. There's a compliance business case. There's a cost savings business case, more throughput. I can handle customers more efficiently. But I think we shouldn't overlook the growth use case. This is going to open up new revenue streams. When a hotel can now contact the individual privately, securely, directly, it's like having WhatsApp to the customer, but without WhatsApp in the middle. I can now directly message them. And that might be offers, it might be updates. And that value, if you think about, we so often design for the happy path, like check out and everything's great and I arrive and check in and, I tap on the taxi. But actually, so much of the cost in the travel industry, in fact, in most industries, the unhappy path, when things go wrong, things are delayed, my bag goes missing. And what is needed then is seamless communications to say, hey, I'm checking in late, or I need this new thing, or I need to be rerouted, or I need an upgrade, or I need to be put on a different plane. And that's when the best place to orchestrate those communications is via the individual. Not just because from a sovereignty point of view, it's just more effective. Otherwise, we need a big data Borg in the sky that's connecting every passenger to every possible destination in every airline, every taxi, which doesn't make sense. So economically, it's best to organize information around the individual. And I think we're not even at the end of the beginning of being able to understand the value that's going to be created for customers when things can be automated, when things can be verifiable, but most importantly, when I can do automation. Think of like all the automated business processes on the business side. Why can I automate business on my side? I'm delayed. I need this extra thing or to be rerouted or whatever. So I think the value business case is going to be extraordinary.
Right. So thank you so much for that. And now we talked about the opportunities, right? We talked about who has to be involved. And if you would paint a roadmap now, because when I take it, it's not a reality yet, right? So we have solutions like Amadeus Traveler ID, but it's one solution, but it's not the picture you're painting entirely. So how far are we away from that status? And also I want to add, because we only have like about 7 minutes left, I want to collect all your thoughts very briefly. First of all, what's the perspective, your vision? When will this take place, like be a reality? And what's your one CTA to the audience? And I'd like you, Florian, to think about hotel operator. Nick, you, someone in the industry, a travel professional wanting to engage with that. And Francois and Jamie, to you two, like a travel company. And I'd like to start with you, Florian. What would you say? When is this a reality and what to do today?
So I think it's happening. And with the new ITBBerlin directive in Europe, there is a goal set out for 2030. 80% of the European citizens will use EID in whatever form. So, and I would think that the reality can even happen a little earlier than that.
Yeah.
Who to bring on board? Everything that we've talked about is technology. And a very important part of that project that we are part of is that we changed policies. So we changed the German registration law to allow for an acceptance of that ID. So I think there is lobbyism that is required because you can't solve this just with technology. You need also lawmakers and policymakers on board as well.
Right. Francois, from your perspective, what would you say?
It's happening already. If you look at the COVID situation in a lot of countries, you have this app you can download to store your COVID certificate. In some cases, it's getting tied to your identity. And if you look at what we've been doing last year, 25 airlines started to use the Traveler ID solution for safe travel, so for the COVID use case. We've been partnering with digital company wallets like IATA, powered by Evernym, IBM, Affinity, and others. So it's already happening. And in the US, in Canada, in Asia, you see the first use cases going live on the market. And you will see in the coming years a scale taking in, and like we said, a number of new use cases that we just start to scratch the surface on.
Perfect, thank you. Jamie, your thoughts or your call to action for the audience?
So look, I think it's happening now. It's early. I think in about 18 months' time, we could and should expect, wallets to be adopted, at larger scale. And I think travel will be a key use case because it's so well suited to this idea of organizing information around the individual. The call to action, I think, is to get started, to understand what it's going to take for your organization to enter this new world. It's like we've just now got the browser and the internet. Okay, what do we do? Bookings online now, or what's the customer experience? Start thinking about it now, because it's going to take many months for organizations to get match fit, if you like, and to think about revenue streams, operating model, compliance stories. And as Florian said, there's many stakeholders, from regulators to compliance teams, to think about what the impact is. So start now, and Avast is working very hard on making it possible for organizations.
Great, thank you. And Nick, you have the last word. And also add, please, as a third point, where can the audience find information on that if they want to read up on it?
Train has left the station. This is happening.
This is happening.
It's too big to stop right now.
All right.
Second thing, where to look. Travel loyalty is the destination for us. Travel loyalty. It's the pain point. We can fix this pain point with this technology, and we should be, as an industry, fully supportive and appreciative of the opportunity that we have to do something beneficial, not just for the customer, not just for the traveler, but for the travel providers as well. This is the key point. Where can you look? Come to DIF, Decentralized Identity Foundation. You'll find information about the Hospitality and Travel SIG, but there are plenty of others. W3C, there's plenty of other places you can go as well who are engaged in this. But Hospitality and Travel SIG under DIF, give us a call. We'd be glad to talk to you.
Yeah, well, I have a personal recommendation for you in the audience. If you just make sure to follow all these 4 gentlemen on LinkedIn, you will collect a lot of great insights and thoughts and comments. So that makes really fun, like joining them. You'll learn a lot by just following them. So I can recommend that. And maybe you just reach out to them as well directly. So to follow up on this panel and just extend the conversation in a one-to-one exchange as well. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, Florian, Daniel, Nick Price. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. Jamie Smith and Francois Blanc, thank you so much for joining us as well, offering your views. I really enjoyed it and looking forward how this further evolves. And everyone in the audience, thank you so much also for tuning in, having been with us. Stick around. It's the program awaits you with more interesting topics to come, and looking forward to see you back here in a minute and giving back to Katie.